Hello and welcome back. Today I'm building the McLaren MP4-12C GT3 in 1/24th scale by Fujimi. Now Fujimi kits come in for a little bit of criticism, especially when compared to some of their fellow Japanese brands. I'd heard some pretty good things about this kit, starting by sanding it down. Also inspired by this real version. This is the prototype version of the road car, shown here at the British Motor Museum. After priming this in white, I then used Pro Scale Paints McLaren Orange. This is colour matched to the exact right shade. It's also pre-thinned, which is very useful. I used my Galeri airbrush for these. These sections are actually done in black, so you need to use quite a bit of white primer to try to get the tone right. Then you've got these vents on the side. These go together very nicely, lots of little pins and things like that to secure those. And then you've got these swoosh decals on the side. Using some Mr. Mark setter to help these adhere. Then yeah, that goes over the top like so. And you do one of these for each side. There we are, just smooth that down. Now then you've got this section at the side that needs to be removed. I'd left that on so that it would stay on the spray clip stand thing that I use. But then you've got these door sections which need to go into place. It's a good idea to test fit these before gluing them. And then these go behind like so. Fitment of these was pretty good, but make sure that your bodywork or none of your pieces are bent, as that will make it more challenging to fit them. Now the next thing is quite challenging, and that's these large decals here. As you see, these need to go behind the vent piece that I've just added, which isn't very easy. I think it's good to put down a lot of liquid to help decals move around on the surface. Use this damp brush to try to lift them up and push them along. Very worried about creases here, but I managed to settle it all down and used a bit of Mr. Mark Softer afterwards to help it adhere as best as possible. Just be really patient with this. Make sure that you have a decent amount of time. There we are, pretty happy with that, considering how difficult it is. Then do the same for the other side. This one went down much more easily. I think having the practice of the first one really helped. Then there's a few decals on the outside. There's not really much on this racing version. Have a look online if you want to do a different version. I know that there are some really nice looking Gulf decals which are available for this one. These little arrows on the bonnet release clips on the front. Helpfully, Fujimi do provide a load of extras for all of these little small decals, which is very thoughtful. I wish more kits came with things like that. McLaren swoosh on the front. Now I'd forgotten to drill these holes for the radio aerials. This damaged the paint slightly on the roof, however I tested it and discovered that the aerials will cover them up. I then used a really nice new sharp craft blade to cut into these slits around the door. That helped the decals settle down nicely. And then once I was happy that those had cured, I then put the decals on the side, number 60 and the MP4-12C logo. All of these number 60 nameplates are the same, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. Little Michelin man at the back. Now these names on the roof are actually optional, they're not listed in the instructions, however I chose to add them on. Got Klaas Hummel, Pierre Caffer and Adam Christodoulou. It was then given 6 coats of Mr. Super Clear GX, and once I was happy that that had cured for a few days, I wet sanded it with some Tamiya 3000 grit sanding pads, and then used some Kent Models Hyper Polish along with my Dremel. Now it's time for the undercarriage. Now you've got disc brakes on all 4 wheels. These go together like so. You then put the front of the caliper on, and there's little decals that go on the front of that, which I haven't done here. There's not a fully detailed undercarriage on this, not detailed suspension or things like that, and there's a completely flat floor. So this car is lacking a little bit of mechanical detail on the underside. These brake parts have all been painted in Revels, silvers, irons and semi-gloss blacks. And then you've got that steering controlling arm which goes at the front. I actually chose to leave the floor of the car in the black plastic. Tried to see how much getting away with not painting I could do here. However, I did do the diffuser at the back in some gunmetal to make it look a little bit more like carbon fibre. And here's the rear brakes. The MP4-12C had something called brake steer, which allowed the rear brakes to brake more on one side or the other, allowing it to turn corners quicker. Some say that this was inspired by the F1 car of the same name, the MP4-12, which had the infamous third pedal, before that was outlawed by a protest from Ferrari. So as you can see, you've got the metal axle at the back here. I've actually put it into place, although as soon as I stop this, it falls out, so I'll replace it later before adding the wheels. For these vents around the back, these are supposed to be black, so I mask them off. And then I decided to brush paint these using some Revell matte black. As you can see here, this is how it should look on the real car. And then I also masked around the tail here for these lights and vents and the exhaust as well. Masked and painted in Tamiya semi-gloss black. Lots of little coats for that. But unfortunately peeled off this paint when trying to do these window trim masks. So I repainted that using a bit of Tamiya orange, and then we did the window trims with a brush and Revell matte black. Not the finish that I was really hoping for, but not really much I could do about it, rather than stripping the car down, and I really didn't want to do that. Tow hooks go in the front and the back, like so, and there's also this little piece here which will clip the chassis to the body. I found when putting the tow hooks into place I actually scratched off some of the paint, so once they were in place I went over with a little bit more red. Vent in the bonnet clips very nicely. And then the headlights here on the chrome sprue should be mainly in a kind of anthracite grey. So I brush painted that on, it's Revell paint, leaving the headlight bulb. And then that clips nicely underneath, fixed with a little bit of super glue. There we are. You've got window masks in this, which is always a nice thing to see. Then used some Tamiya semi-gloss black for this. Carefully peeled them off. I would say if anyone from Fujimi is listening, it would be great if the window trims were included on this as well, so that you didn't have to mask those on the body. Now you're given extras of the Michelin decals. So firstly, peel off the cover sheet, cut them out, put them into place, peel off the backing paper. These are reverse decals, so you turn them over and then wet them until you can see the Michelin logo, leave them a little bit and peel them carefully off. I then added a bit of Mr. Mark Softer on top of that, just to make sure that they were stuck down nicely. And then it was time to add the wheels. Poly caps are quite a tight fit into the centres here, so push them down with something. There you are. Slightly larger wheels go at the back. And the smaller ones go at the front. The wheels were done in semi-gloss black to make them look a little bit like carbon fibre. I also did the centres in iron. I also used a Posca paint pen, little white one later on, to add some markings on the side that the pit crew might do. And then you put these wheel wells over the top. The Recaro seat was painted in semi-gloss black. It doesn't actually come with any belts, and rather than make my own this time, I decided to just use some leftover decals. These are from the Tamiya Celica rally car. Just these little decals. Fold them over the top to make it look like they're real. You won't see much of this once the roof is all on, but it's nice to know it's there. It's always worth keeping some spare seatbelt decals, just in case you've got something like this to do. And then a bit of Mr. Mark setter. And the little Recaro decal goes here. Now I used some of this Tamiya carbon pattern decal for the rear wing. Just cut it into a rectangle, and then once that had cured, put the MP4-12C decal over the top, like so. If you are going to do carbon on something like this started as black plastic, so I didn't feel the need to paint it before adding the decal. Really saved a lot of time. This was done in anthracite grey. Then you've got little silver and black details, like these little vents here. Steering wheel was done in semi-gloss black with anthracite handles and some little coloured buttons. Also a small decal on that. There's not many interior decals. There's a little silver vent here that goes in the middle. Interior tub was painted in gunmetal to look a bit like carbon fibre. I added details in black and colour for some of the buttons. This extinguisher was done in silver with some aluminium tape for the straps to hold it down. You'll also notice that I coloured the engine according to the instructions. Very simple interior. Not too many parts here. Now the roll cage I did find a bit fiddly. According to the instructions it suggests doing these front three parts first, but I found that when testing these would fall apart. So it makes much more sense to attach them to this large crosspiece first, as you're gluing them in more than one place. So that would be my recommendation if you were doing this. Again, this should be in satin black, so I chose to leave it in the bare plastic. It looks pretty much exactly as it would do if I painted it. And then once that's all glued and secured, there's a few pinholes to put that into the right place. I'm going to hold this while it's gluing to make sure that it doesn't pop out anywhere. Here you can see the engine. You can also see I did a bit of carbon fibre over that section in the middle and the McLaren logo. Then you've got the firewall with the little window. I used some PVA to attach that window. The exhaust here is in silver, but the bit that will be visible out of the rear window I detailed with a little bit of burnt red, this Tamiya weathering powder. These sets are really good. And then you've got the little rear roll section here. There we are for the interior. Then you've got the front splitter that goes on like so. This was painted in Tamiya gunmetal. There's some little vent things which go on either side of that. Try and position them correctly. Then it was time for the interior. Then I added a very small amount of super glue to the inside of the roof and very carefully positioned the window, held that into place to make sure it was secure. And then when adding the bodywork, start from the back. And also you'll need to sort of widen the sides around those vents to make sure that they go around the tub. If it goes on nicely, it should clip on at the front and the back. I must say that this part was quite well designed. Just need to use these tweezers to widen it a bit in places. And it clicks down quite nicely. Then got some external decals. So you've got these little fuel filler caps which go on top of the silver surrounds. One on either side. Extinguisher and battery cutoff signs go on the bottom of the window here. And you've got a little tow sign at the back. And then most of the sun strip has actually been painted on. So this blank pane, or I don't know how you say that, blank pane, not sure, decal you just add to the top of the black sun strip at the top of the window. Does anyone in the comments know what blank pane actually do? Obviously their name means white bread, but do they make watches, for instance? I'm not sure. You've got these little LED lights at the back. You might want to cover those with some clear, and then adding the rear screen using a tiny amount of super glue for this. Dry fit it first to make sure it doesn't need any sanding down to fit nicely. And then this vent at the back, I could have actually added this first, it might have made more sense. And the rear wing with the end plates on as well. I'd given this a matte clear coat to protect the decals. Front wiper. Test fit this first, make sure you're happy. I actually snapped one of the aerials when doing this, but it wasn't too bad. I also found that the holes weren't quite large enough, so I used this pointed file to open them a little wider. Careful when doing this, because obviously you've got the window inside there. and then these I left in the black plastic. We've got these little vents which go just behind the front wheels. Test these before gluing them on. Found that these didn't fit perfectly, but yeah, they were alright. Added some window rubbers using this black Sharpie. Then a tiny amount of super glue at the front and back to put those into place. Wing mirrors in orange and black, with the mirror itself from the chrome tree. Sanded away the paint and used a small amount of super glue to fix those. These are very delicate, so handle with care. Then used some black panel line accent to pick out some of the body panels. And you've got these little aerodynamic parts that go on the front. These are in semi-gloss black. And there we are, it's finished. This is a nice kit, pretty good standard from Fujimi. Not great if you want a bit more mechanical detail, but it's a pretty good replication of the real car. I'm going to be doing my BOAB score now in a shorter version today. There we are. This kit goes together quite well, and it's certainly of a higher quality than most Fujimi kits. 17 feels a little bit low, but it's quite an expensive one, and it is missing out on a bit of accuracy. Legacy can't be any higher, I think, as well. However, let me know what you think down below. I do recommend this. I feel it's a nice, good example of a contemporary GT car, and it's certainly cheaper than ones from companies like BMAX. Anyway, as I say, click one of the videos next and leave a comment down below. Click subscribe, like, all those things. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.